Everybody. George, that's such a good idea, but I come up here and I'm already out of breath because I'm not in shape. Hey guys, welcome to, I think it's the fifth week, sixth week of Chi Alpha, I don't know. But there's a lot more people here tonight. So, first up, on our announcements, we have t-shirts. So if you guys haven't bought one already, you need to buy them. We have, these aren't just any t-shirts that are off of the Chi Alpha websites for like everybody to buy. We have our very own Caroline. And Osazi. That literally created these shirts. So show them love and buy their stuff. Also, we have baptisms coming up. So we already, I think, have 2 people that are signed up. So if that is something that God's been really, really putting on your heart and you want to get dunked, please tell your small group leader, tell anybody on staff, anybody. And we can get you dunked in water. Next up, if you guys haven't noticed, we have a couple of new faces in here from CSU. So if Kendall and Eric, huh? Oh. But if Kendall and Eric could come up and share some things, give them a hand. Kendall, you can come up here. Share the stage. So if you guys could just give us a little backstory, who you guys are, why you're here in Greeley, where you're planning on going.
Yeah, my name's Kendall. Hello. Thank you. My backstory, I was born on September 4th, 1997. Long story short, was born and raised in Arkansas, raised in the church my whole life. Didn't know the Lord till I went to college and met people in Chi Alpha who were on fire for Jesus and had totally submitted their lives to him and made it look like the most beautiful, attractive thing I'd ever seen. And I had to have it. And so I surrendered my life to Jesus, started following him. Realized at some point that means submitting all of your future plans to him too. Which is a beautiful and scary thing until you know that he's totally trustworthy with that. And so that is what led me out here. I wanted to learn how to make disciples, especially in a place where, 1, I was really unfamiliar. 2, there were a lot of agnostic, atheist people of many different religions, and I needed an environment like that to learn how to share the gospel well, how to walk with people well as they are coming to know who Jesus is and why that matters for their life. And so I came to CSU, which is a great place to do that. They have this thing called the CMIT, Campus Missionary in Training program. They train you up to make disciples, not just on the college campus, but wherever the Lord takes you. And so that's where I've been. And we came here this week to get to know you guys and have fun with you. And it has been very fun. Here's my friend Eric.
Hey, is this, okay, it works, sweet. Yeah, my name is Eric. I grew up in Los Angeles, moved out to Fort Collins in 2011. I was a idiot freshman, just rebellious. Yeah, I was an idiot. Selfish, partying my life away, and I just got ambushed by the love of God through Chi Alpha over there. Yeah, come on. And I studied sociology and environmental sustainability, and I was just like, all my classes were full of like all these things that were wrong with the world. And it was like super depressing. And I was like, man, there's got to be an answer somewhere. Like, no one has the answers. And it turns out Jesus has the answer, right? Yeah. Paul says, when he stood in front of the greatest thinkers and philosophers of his day and age, he said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel because it has every answer for man's need. And it's true. So I wanted to go to law and like change the world. And I realized you can't change the world unless you change people's hearts. And so I decided to do the internship program with Chi Alpha, which I hear you guys are going to have one here soon in a few years, right? Yeah, because I wanted to glean from the people who went before me and learn as much as I could and serve and give back to the ministry that poured so much into me before, like, realizing and receiving vision from God for whatever purpose he might have for me. And I received just vision from God, and I'll be going to CU Boulder with some friends in like a year and a half. Yeah, my wife and I are gonna come alongside my best friend who was my small group leader when I was that idiot student. We were both each other's best men in each other's wedding. And yeah, that's small group, guys. That's what y'all are a part of right now. That's what you have the potential for in your future. It's awesome. And I just love him. And I'm like, dude, I want to follow you where you're going. So we're moving to Boulder. And we're here just learning from Duncan and Lori and the Cluths. Just like, man, it's awesome. Just the unity that you guys have here and the love and the depth of friendship that you all share. And like, you guys know how to have fun and get rowdy and like break basketball hoops in the church basement, right? But then like 5 minutes later, we can all be sitting down and like sharing our hearts with each other. And I've just, praise God, y'all have something so special here. So we're so grateful to be here. Thanks for having us.
I'll just hold both of these. Thank you guys for sharing. That was awesome. Next up, we're doing weekly testimonies. So this week, our very own small group leader and some of your guys' small group leader, Gabe, is going to share his.
Seaway. What's up, guys? Cool. Well, yeah, but I mean, you know where I live, so I didn't bring a car, so you kind of just walk yourself. Yeah. So basically, I guess let's see. I first gave my life to God when I was 14. Loved him, but we're gonna skip over that 3 years to 2017. So I was in love with God, but I didn't really have a real relationship with him. I didn't realize that until like last year, actually. The reason I was going to church and I was on fire for God was when my friends were around. And that was it. And I realized this when our church went through a split and everybody was kind of divided, and then all of my friends just like left. And because of that, I had like no more community, no more people. Like I was in youth group and everybody just left. So it was just like, I was the only one my age, apart from my brother and sister, and that was it. So when that happened, I was like, well, I don't need to go to church. All my friends are gone. So, see ya, God. That was a mistake, I tell you what. So I started to get involved with people at my work. All we did was just party, drink, drugs, and that was it. And that's all I cared about. That's the only thing my heart desired. So I quickly just started getting depressed with everything. I felt so alone because I didn't have that brotherhood I once had with everybody. And that was so lonely. And I remember, fast forward just to June of 2018, so I was probably, like 8 months after, I was going over to my former youth pastor's house, and just to pick up some money because I doesn't work for him. He started asking me about life and what my plans were again, since I was going to go to school and what everything was happening. I basically told him, like, I don't want anything to do with God. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do any of this. I just want to, like, make money and spend it, drink, drugs, sex, and that was it. So he was like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And his wife tried so hard to convince me, guys, because she experienced the exact same thing, but it just didn't come through to me. And I remember that day, guys, this is where it gets crazy, okay? This is how I know God doesn't give up on people, because she prayed a dangerous prayer. And I am firmly, like, I just believe if you love somebody, then you will pray dangerous prayers for them. Yeah. Don't you guys think? Like, if she wasn't there for me and she didn't just say these things, and she said, the next time you even think about having sex, you're gonna have the worst migraines in your life. The next time you think about, or not think, but the next time you do weed and smoke, you're gonna have the worst pain in your chest. It's gonna feel like just hell. The next time you take a sip of alcohol, throw up uncontrollably. Guys, the next day, I tell you this, back to back, all three of those things. I was alone in my car, depressed, nobody around me. So all day, migraines. Smoked weed, coughing, wheezing, worst pain in my life, guys. Took a drink of alcohol because I was like, whatever, this won't fail me. Threw up, guys. And then I remember just God's voice in my head telling me, I am better for you. I have more in store for you. I can give you eternal joy and peace and rest than any of these things will. The only thing these are going to do is death. That's all it's going to bring you. But with me, I'll give you just that joy and that comfort that you want, that love that you so desperately desire. And he was right, guys. He was so right. And I just know still today, I always think back on that day of how much God just like pulled me back through that and just helps me every day, guys. If I'm struggling with something, I have my small group guys that I can go talk to about it. And that's how I know like God is real and like God works. Yeah. And here I am.
Wow. Guys, if that seriously isn't encouraging to you, then that was really, really good. Thank you, Gabe. But, yeah, so we're going to continue into our third week of Jesus and the Feast of Israel. So if you guys want to start clapping, here comes our preacher, Peter Kluth.
Man, we should just bring Gabe back up here. He should just preach a sermon tonight. Man, that was fire. All right. How's everyone doing tonight? Good? Good? I feel like there's this energy in here. Feels good. Feels good. Yeah. So, as Sam was saying, we are going through the Feasts of Israel. And, you know, I think the first time I heard about this, I was like, well, that kind of sounds boring. You know. Who cares, you know? Like, that doesn't affect my life, but I think we've seen over these past 2 weeks just how integral these are, how integral the Old Testament is in the life of a believer. And I think if we ignore what it has to say to us, we are seriously missing out on large pieces of God's plan. So, the first week, just a little recap. The first week I talked about Passover and how Jesus is our Passover lamb. Both of these sermons are up on YouTube. If you missed them, you can go check them out. I think they were pretty good. I'm a little biased. That Jesus is our Passover lamb, that he died to set us free from slavery to sin, death, and the devil. His sacrificial death paid our sins and released us from slavery. Last week, Duncan talked about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And again, it's like, man, that just sounds like the most boring name for a feast. But it was so deep, wasn't it? That was so good. Duncan told us how the Feast of Unleavened Bread, where am I? How Jesus is like the bread, right? And he is pure, but was pierced, broken for us. That he makes us like that unleavened bread. He makes us pure. So good. This week, we are discussing first fruits. Another thing is like, great, harvest time. It just sounds boring, right? When I first got this, I looked it up and I was like, wow, that's it, huh? All right. But I did some praying and the Lord actually brought some really cool stuff to the forefront. And so I'm excited about what the Lord has kind of taught me this week, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. So what is first fruits? It is, there's actually some debate over whether this is like a feast. It actually happens like 3 days after Passover. Unleavened bread happens the next day after Passover. So these things are like boom, boom, boom. They all happen at the same time. It occurs the Sunday after Passover. And that becomes really important in a minute here. And I think you'll know why. Before we dive into all that, have you ever had a friend that kind of uses you? Have you ever had a friend that like they only want to be your friend when like none of their other friends will hang out with them? They're like, I'm so bored. You're the only person that wants to hang out right now. Will you hang out with me? They don't say that to your face, but you can tell. And it hurts. It's like, thanks. I'm glad I'm your backup. Your backup plan. It sucks being the backup plan. Or maybe this is like a member of the opposite sex who only reaches out to you when they've broken up with their last boyfriend or girlfriend. Right? We all know these people. Right? It's like they just broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend and they're like, hey, what's up? And you're like, I haven't talked to you in like 2 years. Why are you messaging me? I know at least one person in this room I've talked to that went through this. They were like the backup. That just sucks. So you comfort them and you're kind to them and you're like, we haven't talked in years and I know I'm your backup plan, but I'll be nice to you. And then the minute that they like find another boyfriend or girlfriend, they just toss you to the side. Right? I think sometimes we treat God like this. Sometimes we treat God like this. We only run to him when we're in distress. When like our world is falling apart, we're like, God, I need you. But you haven't prayed or even looked at your Bible in months. God is your backup plan. We only pray when we're having an emotional breakdown, when we only read the Bible when we have nothing better to do. This festival of first fruits is meant to prevent that. The whole goal of it is to be painful enough that it forces you to trust God always. You see, if we give God our first and our best, it sets us up for success the rest of the day, month, year. If we give God our first and our best, it keeps us in check and keeps us dependent on the Lord. So, we're going to turn in our Bibles to Leviticus 23, verse 9. Can you read that? That's way too small. Can you read that? Okay, all right. If you can't, just listen. Or, bring your Bible. Wow. All right. All right, Leviticus 23, verse 9. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you enter the land I am giving you and reap its harvest, you are to bring the first sheaf of your harvest to the priest. He will present the sheaf before the Lord so that you may be accepted. The priest is to present it on the day after the Sabbath. On the day that you present the sheaf, you are to offer a year-old male lamb without blemish as a burnt offering to the Lord. Its grain offering is to be 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil as a food offering to the Lord, a pleasing aroma, and its drink offering will be 1 quart of wine. You must not eat bread, roasted grain, or any new grain until this very day, and until you have brought the offering to your God. This is to be a permanent statute throughout your generations, wherever you live." So, a little bit shorter than last time. Figured I'd keep it short and sweet, More like a lot shorter. Okay. So, first fruits is an offering to the Lord. It doesn't really feel like a feast because you're not really feasting. It's like the, bye Jacob, sorry. It's an offering to the Lord, the first harvest of your grain, specifically barley. This was a barley harvest. The barley harvest would come in before the wheat and the other grains. So this is a picture of barley. I didn't know what barley looked like. It looks like wheat, I guess. I don't know. I know nothing about farming. I'm sorry. My last name literally means farmer. I know nothing about farming. Most people at this time in Israel were farmers. It was an agricultural society, and so their entire year, pretty much their entire life, centered around harvest. It centered around the grains that you would harvest throughout the year. And so that's why we see this throughout even the New Testament, Old Testament and New Testament. A lot of things surround plants, right? Plants are a big theme. So this first harvest would be barley. Right around the time of Passover, it would mature, and they would harvest it, and you would grind it up, turn it into a flour, and offer it to the Lord. And it was a wave offering. So I think I read somewhere that they would wave it to the 4 compass points before the Lord. I don't know what that means. I'm sure Emily could tell you, but I'm not that smart. You would present. It was about 2 quarts. It was an omer, a sheaf, about 2 quarts in today's standards. And you would bring this offering to Jerusalem to give to the priests, and they would wave it before the Lord, and then they would burn a portion of it and keep the rest. And that was the portion for the Levites. So the Levites weren't allowed, they weren't allowed a section in Israel. They had to live off of offerings, or at least the priest did. So you'd bring this to the priests, wave before the Lord, and this would sanctify the rest of the harvest. Paul actually talks about this in the New Testament. In Romans 11, verse 16, says, "Now if the first fruits are holy, so is the whole batch. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. This also will become important later." We'll get there. So first fruits was a very real way to show God that you trusted him. It was the very first harvest of the season. And you were to give God the first and the best of what you had, and trust him with the rest of the year. If it didn't rain, your harvest, the rest of your harvest wouldn't be good, and you would be on hard times, right? This was a very real way to show God that you trusted him. It was sacrificial. it wasn't something that was easy to give, right? We think of like a grain offering, I'll just go pick it up at the store. It's like $4, for this pound of flour, and, it's no big deal. But this really was their livelihood that they were offering to the Lord. This is a big deal. Farmers were extremely reliant on rains and sunny days to help their crops grow. They didn't have like sprinklers or like advanced irrigation systems. If you drive out anywhere outside of Greeley, you see like these big watering things, that like go around. They didn't have those, right? And it's not like you're gonna, I'll go to the well and carry a bunch of water back for my family and my crops. Probably not, right? If you gave your first harvest to the Lord, then had a bad crop the rest of the season, your life would be hard. Interestingly, this idea of first fruits is like a thread that you can trace all the way through the Bible. It's really cool, actually. In Genesis, all the way back in Genesis, Cain and Abel, story of Cain and Abel. We're gonna look at that real quick. Genesis 4. The man, Adam, was intimate with his wife Eve and conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, "I have a male child with the Lord's help." She also gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel became a shepherd of flocks, but Cain worked the ground. In the course of time, Cain presented some of the land's produce as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also presented an offering, some of the firstborn of his flock, and their fat produce, or portions. The Lord had regard for Abel's offering, but he did not have regard for Cain and his offering. Cain was furious, and he looked despondent. I think most of us know what happens next. Cain, decides to hit Abel over the head with a rock. Imagine that, man. Anyways, upon first glance, it's kind of hard to distinguish why Abel's gift was like considered better than Cain's. It doesn't tell us a whole lot, but there is something here that connects to first fruits, and you can find it up there. Here it is. Notice that Abel brought an offering, the firstborn of his flock. Cain just brought an offering of produce. And so it's in this little detail that we see why Abel's offering was better than Cain's. Abel's offering was the first and best thing he had. Cain's gift was what was left over. Abel's offering was better because it showed that he truly trusted God. Cain apparently didn't trust God and just gave whatever he had left over. There is some, maybe reading into the text here, but I think it's pretty clear that this meaning can be drawn out. Abel didn't know how many more male lambs his female lamb, I think they're ewes? I don't know. I don't know anything about this. He didn't know how many more lambs would be born, but he decided to give his firstborn anyway and trusted God that more would come. Cain ate what he needed and then just gave God what was left over. Fast forward to when the Israelites were coming into the land of Canaan. This one blew me away. I had never seen this parallel. If you read the book of Joshua, you'll see this. But I think many of you probably know the story, especially if you grew up in the church. They come into the promised land, and the first city that they have to conquer is Jericho. And God tells them to, walk around it like every day for a set, I can't remember the exact details, but walk around it every day, like every 7 days or something like that. And then they would shout on the last day, and the walls fell down, right? God delivered them that city, but he said, you must burn everything. Nothing. You cannot keep any of the spoils. None of the gold, none of the livestock, none of the, women, I guess. I don't know. Different time. Different time. God required everything in the city to be devoted to destruction. But one Israelite had a hard heart and decided to keep some of the stuff. And so Israel went on and lost their next battle. And Joshua goes and cries out to the Lord. He's like, God, you said that you would deliver us here, but we're losing. What's the deal? And God's like, you have someone that didn't do what I asked. And so they go and they dig up what the guy had stolen from the Lord. You can't steal stuff from the Lord. He had stolen this from the Lord. They dig it up and I think they killed the guy. It's kind of crazy. But this first city was a first fruits. Every other city they went to, they got to keep the spoils. Every other city they went to, they got to keep the spoils. But God wanted this first and best city to be his. Right? And so it was an offering to the Lord that they would burn this first city and trust that God would continue to deliver them. God required the first and best to be given to him. All right, so now we're going to backtrack just a little bit, back to the story of Abraham and Isaac. God asked Abraham to offer his son Isaac to him, to kill his son, and his son would be a burnt offering. Now, Abraham was really old. His wife was really old. And God had promised, from you, I will create a nation. And Abraham must have just been like, okay, I don't know how you're going to fulfill this promise, God, but I trust you. And he traveled to Mount Moriah, which happens to be the place that Jerusalem was built on. That'll become important in a second. And he goes to kill his son. Having a son myself, I'm like, I can't imagine the mental pain, right? He goes to kill his one and only true son, and God stops him and offers a ram in his place. He gives him a ram. He gave his first and best son to the Lord and trusted that God would provide for him just as he'd promised. And this hill, where Abraham's only true son was offered up, was the very hill that would later become Jerusalem, and that Jesus would later bleed and die on for our sins. God gave his one and only first and best son for us, in faith that we would have faith in him. That feels backwards, right? That just blew my mind. God, in fact, provided his own first and best son in our place. God gave us his first fruits before anyone truly had faith in Jesus. He died while we were still sinners. And so this appointed time of first fruits was a way for Israel to remember the Lord, to offer their first and best to God as a sign that they trusted him. So, how does this connect to Jesus? I've already talked a little bit about it, but there's more. I was reading a commentary on Leviticus 23, and this is what the guy said. This feast had a typical character, and it pre-imitated the resurrection of Christ, who rose from the dead on the very day the first fruits were offered. Did you know that? Easter day was the day of first fruits. Jesus rose from the dead on the very day that Jews in the land of Israel were offering first fruits to God. So while they were offering their first fruits to God, Jesus was being raised from the dead as a first fruit of the coming resurrection. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20, "But as it is, Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. For since death came through a man, the resurrection of the dead also comes through a man. For just as in Adam all die, so in Christ all will be made alive. But each to his own order, Christ the first fruits, afterward at his coming, those who belong to Christ." And so Jesus is the first fruits in the coming great harvest that is the resurrection from the dead. This is our hope. This is the hope of the Christian faith, the resurrection from the dead. I think a lot of us Christians have this concept, I certainly did for a long time, that we're like, when we die, we're going to go to heaven and just spend eternity in a worship session in heaven, right? I legit thought that for a long time. That's not right. That's not even remotely biblical, right? Our hope is in the resurrection from the dead, that we will rise and reign with Christ in the coming kingdom. Many Jews at Jesus' time, and still today, reject Jesus. And it's because they expect at the coming of the Messiah, there will be a resurrection. And it will be, every believer, I guess, will be raised from the dead. All of Israel will be raised from the dead. They don't realize that this very thing, that Jesus was to raise first, and then the rest, is prophesied in their feasts. It's prophesied in their feasts that there would be a first fruits, that one would raise, and then the rest. Jesus is the first fruits of what is to come for believers. So just as Passover was fulfilled in Jesus dying as our Passover lamb, and the Feast of Unleavened Bread was fulfilled in Jesus purifying us, first fruits is fulfilled in Jesus being resurrected from the dead and ascending into heaven. He is the first fruits of what is to come. All believers being raised from the dead to reign with him in the end. And that's what's to come. And a little spoiler alert, the last 3 festivals, or 4, I guess? I can't do the counting. Anyways, the last festivals are the last 3 are that. That is the last 3. Sorry for the spoiler. Let's go back real quick to Romans 11. Now, if the first fruits are holy, so is the whole batch. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. So in the first fruit offering, part of its significance for Israel was that if they offered their first fruits, the rest of their harvest would be holy to the Lord. And in the same way, Jesus being the first fruits means that all who are associated with Jesus, all who believe in him, are made holy. Because if the first fruit is holy, the coming harvest is holy. The first fruit offering would make holy the entirety of the harvest. And so while Jesus fulfilled the first fruit offering, it doesn't mean that he abolished the spirit of it. It isn't of no use to us. Obviously, we live in a very different day and age, right? Worship team, if you guys want to come up. We live in a very different day and age. I think I'm safe in saying that I don't think there's any farmers in this room. Evan's probably the closest thing we got. I don't think any of us are true farmers. And so how do we offer our first harvest to the Lord? The Spirit is still here. The Spirit is still important. God still desires our first and best. God has given us his first and best in Jesus. Will you give God your first and best in your life? This could be as simple as your mornings, like doing devotional time in the morning, right? That is giving God the first and best of your day. I am most alert 9 a.m., not right when I wake up. But I have children, and I cannot focus when my kids are running around screaming. So I do my devos, my own first and best time. Right? This might be the first and best of your money. Do you, when you go to give, do you just give God whatever's left over? Or do you give to him first and trust him with the rest? Do you give God the first and best, or do you just give him what's left over? So, will you give God your first and best? Let's enter a time of worship and give God our best.